Imagine you're standing in front of a group of people. Someone smiles and asks you a simple question. So, tell us a little about yourself. Your heart starts beating faster. You know what you want to say. The ideas are already inside your mind. But before you speak, another voice appears. What if my grammar is wrong? What if they laugh? What if I use the wrong tense? Maybe I should stay quiet. And just like that, you say nothing. Not because you don't know English, but because you're afraid of making a mistake. If that sounds familiar, I want you to know something. Almost every English learner has experienced this feeling. And today, we're going to change it forever. Because the biggest obstacle to speaking English isn't grammar, it's fear. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone whose English wasn't perfect, but they spoke with incredible confidence? Maybe they made grammar mistakes. Maybe their pronunciation wasn't perfect, but somehow, everyone understood them. Now think about someone else. Maybe they knew more vocabulary. Maybe they understood grammar better, but they barely spoke. Which person sounded more fluent? Usually, the first one. Because communication isn't about perfection. It's about connection. Let me tell you about Marco. Marco moved to Canada with very basic English. On his first day, he needed to buy groceries. He walked into a supermarket. He wanted apples. But he couldn't remember the sentence. Where can I find the apples? Instead, he smiled and said, Apple, where? Was his grammar correct? No. Did the employee understand him? Immediately. The employee smiled, pointed toward the fruit section, and said, right over there. Marco walked away with a huge smile. That day, he learned something more valuable than any grammar rule. People want to understand you. They're not waiting for you to make a mistake. They're trying to help you communicate. From that moment, Marco stopped waiting for perfect English. He started using the English he already had. Within 1 year, his confidence grew faster than his vocabulary. Because confidence comes from speaking, not from waiting. Now I want you to imagine learning to swim. Would you stand beside the pool for 5 years, studying swimming techniques, without ever entering the water? Of course not. Eventually, you have to jump in. Yes, you'll splash. Yes, you'll make mistakes. But that's how swimmers become swimmers. English works exactly the same way. You don't become a confident speaker by reading another grammar book. You become confident by speaking. Here's something that may surprise you. Native English speakers make grammar mistakes every single day. They start sentences and change them halfway through. They forget words. They correct themselves. They use slang. They break grammar rules in casual conversation. Yet, they keep talking. Because their goal isn't perfect grammar. Their goal is communication. Imagine 2 learners. The first learner says, I have been studying English for 3 years, and I would like to improve my communication skills. Perfect grammar. The second learner says, I study English 3 years, because I want to speak with people around world. Grammar mistakes. But they speak confidently. Who improves faster? Usually, the second learner. Because every conversation teaches them something. Every mistake becomes a lesson. Silence teaches nothing. Now let's play a little game. Suppose you forget the past tense of a verb. Do you stop speaking? No. Keep going. Maybe you say, yesterday I go to the market. Later, you realize, oh, it should be went. Great. You've just learned something. Without stopping the conversation. That's exactly how children learn. Children don't wait until they know every grammar rule. They speak. Adults correct them naturally. Little by little, their grammar improves. Adults often try to do the opposite. They wait until their grammar is perfect. Then they start speaking. The problem is, that day never comes. So today, I want you to make a promise. Don't let grammar become the reason you stay silent. Because silence is the only mistake that guarantees you'll never improve. Let's try something together. Imagine I ask, what did you do last weekend? Don't spend 30 seconds creating the perfect answer. Just begin. I visited my friend. Good. Then continue. We watched a movie. Excellent. Maybe your grammar isn't perfect. That's okay. You're communicating. You're building confidence. You're becoming fluent. One sentence at a time. Now let me tell you a secret that professional language teachers know. Fluency comes first. Accuracy comes later. Think about driving. When you first learn, your only goal is keeping the car moving safely. You're not thinking about driving perfectly. After enough practice, smooth driving becomes natural. Then, you improve the details. English follows the same pattern. First, learn to keep the conversation moving. Later, polish the grammar. That's a much faster path to fluency. Now, I want you to think about something. Have you ever had a conversation with a child? Children don't stop every few seconds to ask themselves, was that the correct grammar? They simply speak. Sometimes they invent words. Sometimes they use the wrong tense. Sometimes their sentences don't even make complete sense. Yet, they communicate. And every day, their language becomes better. Now imagine if every child refused to speak until their grammar was perfect. Would anyone ever learn a language? Of course not. So why do adults expect themselves to be perfect before they speak? Somewhere along the way, we started believing that making mistakes is embarrassing. But mistakes aren't proof that you're failing. They're proof that you're learning. Imagine you're learning to play the guitar. The first time you pick it up, your fingers hurt. The music doesn't sound good. You press the wrong strings. Would you quit? No. Because you expect to make mistakes. Language deserves the same patience. Now let me tell you about Sophia. Sophia dreamed of working for an international company. She studied English every day. She watched grammar videos. She completed hundreds of exercises. But during meetings, she hardly spoke. One day, her manager noticed. After the meeting, he asked, "Do you have ideas?" She nodded. "Lots of ideas. So why don't you share them?" She looked down and quietly answered, "I'm afraid my English isn't good enough." Her manager smiled. Then he said something she never forgot. "I hired you because of your ideas. Not because of your grammar." That sentence changed her life. From that day forward, she started speaking. Sometimes she made mistakes. Sometimes she corrected herself. Sometimes she couldn't remember a word. But she kept talking. 6 months later, people didn't remember her grammar mistakes. They remembered her ideas. That's the power of confidence. People remember your message. Not every tiny mistake. Now let's do a simple experiment. I'll give you 2 speakers. Speaker number 1 says, "Yesterday I went to the shopping mall with my cousin, and we bought a new laptop." Perfect. Speaker number 2 says, "Yesterday I go shopping with cousin. We buy laptop." Very exciting. Not perfect. But can you understand the story? Absolutely. Communication happened. Could the grammar improve? Yes. But the message was clear. That's what matters most. Now here's another important lesson. Don't apologize every time you make a mistake. Many learners say, "Sorry, my English is bad." Or, "Sorry, I'm not good at English." Imagine saying that 5 times in one conversation. What happens? You begin focusing on your mistakes instead of your message. Instead, if you make a mistake, simply continue. Or correct yourself naturally. For example, I go, "Sorry. I went to the market yesterday." Then keep talking. No embarrassment. No panic. Just continue. That's exactly what native speakers do. Have you ever heard someone say, "I mean, actually, what I meant was"? Those are self-corrections. Everyone does them. You're allowed to do the same. Now let's talk about confidence. Where does confidence actually come from? Many people believe confidence comes first. Then action. Real life works differently. Action comes first. Confidence follows. Imagine riding a bicycle for the first time. Were you confident? Probably not. But after riding 100 times, confidence appeared naturally. Speaking English follows the same pattern. Every conversation adds a little more confidence. Every sentence makes the next sentence easier. Every mistake teaches your brain something new. Now imagine 2 learners. The first learner waits until they feel confident. The second learner speaks even when they feel nervous. 6 months later, who is more confident? The second learner. Because confidence is the reward for action, not the requirement. Here's another exercise I want you to practice. Every day, tell yourself one story in English. Maybe something that happened at work. Maybe a funny moment with your family. Maybe what you ate for lunch. Don't worry about perfect grammar. Focus on finishing the story. Because finishing thoughts builds fluency. Stopping thoughts builds fear. Now let's imagine you're traveling in another country. You walk into a small restaurant. The waiter asks, "What would you like to order?" You forget the word fork. Do you stay silent? No. You smile and say, "The thing we use to eat." The waiter immediately understands. Problem solved. That's communication. Fluent speakers don't always know the perfect word. They know how to keep communicating. And that's a much more valuable skill. Now I want to tell you something that many learners need to hear. Nobody is counting your grammar mistakes. Think about the last conversation you had with someone. Can you remember every grammar mistake they made? Probably not. You remember their story, their joke, their advice, their personality. The same is true when you speak English. People are listening to your ideas, not grading your grammar. The person judging your English the most is usually you. And once you stop being your own harshest critic, speaking becomes much easier. Now, I want you to imagine something. You're sitting in a job interview. The interviewer asks, "Tell me about a challenge you've overcome." Immediately, your brain starts searching for perfect grammar. Should I use the present perfect? Maybe the past perfect? What if I choose the wrong tense? While you're thinking about grammar, you're forgetting something much more important. The interviewer isn't looking for a grammar teacher. They're trying to understand you. They want to know how you solve problems, how you think, how you communicate. Your story matters more than perfect grammar. Imagine two candidates. The first one speaks with perfect grammar, but gives short, boring answers. The second one makes a few grammar mistakes, but tells an interesting story with confidence. Who leaves a stronger impression? Very often, the confident storyteller. Because people connect with authenticity, not perfection. Now let's talk about another habit that's holding many learners back. Comparing yourself to native speakers. Imagine someone has spoken English for 30 years. You've been learning for 2. Is it fair to compare yourself? Of course not. That would be like comparing someone who's been driving for 20 years, with someone who got their license last month. Instead, compare yourself to the person you were 6 months ago. Can you understand more English now? Can you speak longer? Do you hesitate less? If the answer is yes, you're making progress. And progress is what fluency is built on. Now here's something fascinating. Many international business leaders don't speak perfect English. Scientists, entrepreneurs, engineers, doctors, researchers. They often have noticeable accents. Sometimes they make grammar mistakes. Yet they give presentations around the world. They negotiate million-dollar deals. They teach at universities. Why? Because their goal isn't to sound like native speakers. Their goal is to communicate clearly. That's your goal too. Communication, not perfection. Now let's do another exercise. Imagine someone asks, "What's your biggest dream?" Don't overthink. Just answer. Maybe you say, "My biggest dream is to travel around the world." Continue. "I want to experience different cultures and meet people from different countries." Keep going. "I also hope to improve my English so I can communicate with everyone confidently." Notice what happened? You kept speaking. Maybe every sentence wasn't perfect, but the conversation continued. That's success. Now let's imagine you're talking with an American friend. Halfway through your sentence, you realize you've made a mistake. Don't panic. Smile. Correct it naturally. For example, "I've lived here for 3 years. Sorry, 3 years. Then continue. Native speakers do this all the time. Nobody expects conversations to sound like carefully edited books. Real conversations are messy. People interrupt themselves. They change sentences. They laugh. They forget words. That's completely normal. Now I want to teach you one sentence that can save almost any conversation. If you can't remember a word, simply say, "How do I say this?" Or, "What's the word for?" These phrases don't make you sound weak. They make you sound engaged. You're showing the other person that you're trying. Most people are happy to help. And every time someone gives you the missing word, your vocabulary grows. Now let's imagine you're learning to cook. The first time you make a new recipe, it probably won't be perfect. Maybe there's too much salt. Maybe you cook it too long. But after making it 10 times, you don't even need the recipe anymore. Speaking English works exactly the same way. Every conversation is another recipe. The first one feels difficult. The 10th one feels easier. The 100th one feels natural. So don't judge your first conversation by the standards of your 100th. Give yourself permission to grow. Now let's talk about your inner voice. What do you tell yourself before speaking English? Do you think, "I'm going to make mistakes. People will laugh at me. My English isn't good enough"? Those thoughts become reality. Instead, replace them with new ones. Every conversation makes me better. Mistakes help me improve. People care about my ideas. I already know enough English to communicate. Your brain believes what you repeat. Choose thoughts that help you, not thoughts that stop you. Here's one final challenge. For the next 7 days, every time you have the opportunity to speak English, say one more sentence than you normally would. If you usually answer with one sentence, answer with 2. If you usually speak for 30 seconds, try 1 minute. Tiny improvements, every single day. Because confidence doesn't appear overnight. It grows, one conversation, one sentence, and one brave moment at a time. One day, someone will ask you a question in English. You'll answer immediately. You'll smile. You'll keep the conversation going. Then later, you'll suddenly realize something. You weren't thinking about grammar anymore. You were thinking about your ideas. And that's the moment you'll know, you're becoming fluent. Because fluency isn't the absence of mistakes. It's the freedom to express yourself, even when mistakes happen. So from today, stop waiting to become perfect. Start speaking with the English you already know. Trust yourself. Keep learning. Keep talking. Keep making mistakes. Because every mistake you make today, is one less mistake you'll make tomorrow. And every conversation you have, brings you one step closer to becoming the confident English speaker you've always wanted to be. I'll see you in the next lesson. Until then, be brave enough to speak, be patient enough to improve. And remember this one sentence whenever fear appears. People don't remember perfect grammar. They remember confident communication. Keep speaking. And I'll see you next time.